Welcome back to Sparks of Joy Studio. It has been, oh my gosh, 7 months since I started this channel. And in that time, we have created a lot of things. And it has created a huge mess in my craft area. So for today, we're going to craft some of my stash. Let's get started. This first project is this candle stand that I had gotten a while ago. I had painted it white. It has some of the salt wash mixed in, so it does have some texture to it. And then I added a resin mold or a resin casting with that bird. And so then it sat. I didn't know where else to go with it. And honestly, at this point, all I'm going to do is take some Grunge Gray by Dixie Belle and just allow it to bring out some of the detail in this beautiful piece, and I'm going to leave it be. I love crafting and I love trying new things, but I also am trying to remind myself that a finished piece can be a finished piece without having to add on or change or do a bunch of different things. I ended up waxing this, wiping back the excess, and here's a look at the finished project. And I think it is perfect and it is done. For our next project, I have these two pieces. It's actually two pieces of wood, but one of the pieces of wood, I actually put a frame around it, and I attempted, it was my very first attempt at making some sort of tier tray. This was well over a year ago. And then it just sat in my stash. So what I'm going to do is I separated the two pieces as you saw, and I am painting the frame that is glued to this wood piece in the color Heirloom by Fusion. Now I'm going to be taking a decoupage medium that I have. I believe this is DecoArt Decoupage Matte, and I am going to decoupage on this gorgeous rice paper that is from The Painted Photographer. This piece that you'll see in a second is from the Maker's Box by Sonnet, Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and I can't remember. Let's see, as soon as I turn that paper around, I'll be able to tell you if it's from the June or July box. Okay, this is from the June box. This was the first box she put out. It was her, debut of her Maker's Box. And I've been waiting for the right place to put it. And look how perfectly that piece fits right inside that frame. I'm using the same decoupage medium to seal the piece, and now I'm using some white wax. This is by DIY, and I am going to cover the entire frame with the white wax and then wipe back the excess. For our next project, I have this beautiful piece. I absolutely love the shape of it. It has an insert in it, so it almost looks like it's a floral pocket or something like that, but it has that tiny little shelf at the bottom, which I thought was super cute. I think I picked this up when I was on vacation at the beach, and I knew that I wanted to do something with milk paint with this. So I mixed up, this is, I believe, Almond Latte by Fusion, and I'm going to paint it with 2 coats of this paint. One thing I do want to mention about milk paint is as many times as I've tried, I can never get the right consistency with the typical 1-to-1 ratio. So I always keep an extra mister or extra water on hand, as well as the extra powder, just to make sure that I can make the texture, make the consistency of the paint exactly what I'm looking for my project. If you have never tried milk paint before, I just want to mention some of the benefits of using milk paint. It is a very easy to use product. The mixed paint can be saved for up to 2 weeks, and that's also dependent on the brand. So make sure you check to see if different brands have different shelf lifetimes. And it's a very versatile paint. It can pretty much go on to a variety of surfaces and actually stick and really allow you some great flexibility and creativity. It can easily be cleaned up with water. It is also something you can wet distress backs. Here's a look at the crackle that I achieved with this milk paint after the 2 coats and letting it dry. I did blast it with a heat gun a little bit, which created a little bit of that unique texture, and it's not really discolored. It's just that some parts chipped off more than others. I then took this piece and just wanted to sand back a little bit on the edges to give it a little bit more definition and age. As I mentioned, it is a easily wet distressed and easy cleanup kind of paint, which also means it needs to be sealed before you move on to any additional steps within your project and for it to be complete. So I am sealing this piece with a matte finish. It's a polyacrylic in a matte finish, sorry. And I wanted to make sure I didn't have any kind of sheen or glossiness to this piece. So that's why I chose a matte finish. I'm now taking the crackle stamp from the Vintage Textures IOD stamp set, and I am going to cover the entire piece, the front and the sides. I don't do the back because nobody's really going to see that, but I'm covering it with this crackled texture. And then I went into my stash of transfers and I found this transfer. I do not remember if it is from the Ephemeral Melange transfer set or the Seeds catalog transfer set from IOD. I know it's IOD, but comment below if you know. I should have somehow saved my transfers in a way where I knew where they came from so that if I wanted to order them again, I could, but I didn't. So I would love to know if you know which one this came from. It's a really pretty transfer, and I feel like it has some of those fall colors mixed in with some of the summer colors. So it's I guess a good transitional piece. I do seal my piece again to make sure that the transfer is protected, and here it is all finished up and styled. Okay, this next piece, I bought this a year ago and I wanted to make it over, but I was still not sure what I wanted to do. I'm a relatively new crafter when it comes to using a lot of these upscale materials, I guess is the best way to say it. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. So it sat in my stash. Then around Christmas time, I was gonna do something with it. So I took out the 3 picture frames and I put them somewhere and couldn't find them. So I have been wanting to upcycle this, but I couldn't find the middle 3 frames that, or the glass and then the backing to the frame. And so I was thinking, okay, what can I do instead? What can I do instead? And all of a sudden, as I was cleaning my craft room, what do you know? I found those pieces that I swore I had thrown out. So this is a great, I guess, reason for me to be cleaning up my stash and cleaning up my craft room and organizing a little bit more so that I don't continue to have this problem of trying to find stuff. This piece, I decided to paint it with milk paint again. So we're going to be using that milk paint. This is the color Loyalty, I believe. I will make sure that I put it in the description box. This is another fusion milk paint and I absolutely love this color. It is just gorgeous. I painted this piece with 2 coats of it and let it dry naturally. So for this piece, instead of heat like heat setting it. I just let it dry naturally. And as you can see, the milk paint in this project that I was using is a little bit more runny than that other one that I did with the almond latte. So I did thicken it up a little bit more, and now as it's going on, you can see not only is the color a lot more vibrant, but it actually is offering a little bit more of that texture rather than the runniness that you saw on the back. Once the paint was completely dry, I used a clear wax and covered all of the milk paint to seal it in. So in the other project, I was using that polyacrylic sealer. In this project, I'm using a clear wax. Either one works with sealing milk paint. After I wiped back some of the excess of that clear wax, I am using some now grunge gray wax, and I'm wiping it on right over where that clear wax was. It allows me to have a little bit more control of this wax and bring back as much of it as I need to, but still allowing it to have some of that texture and that dimension peek through. Now I'm taking some just plain white cardstock and I am tracing the frame and making 3 different little, I guess, backings that I'm going to be using to decorate the inside of those frames. This is one of the brand new stamps by IOD called Ephemeral Type, and I will tell you, it is probably one of my favorite stamp sets that they have. It is so versatile. I am using it here just to create a background for some transfers that I'm going to put on, and I wanted it to just be very simple. So I am only using the part of this stamp set where it's just text, as if it was a book page. I then found 3 little transfers. I actually think it's 4 tiny transfers that I felt complemented each other and also were a good contrasting color to that blue that's on the piece. And I am just transferring them right onto this paper. I then took that same Ephemeral Type stamp and I am using the other parts of it in random places on the inside of those divider spaces just to add some additional character. I did not want to paint the inside of this piece, but when I looked at it, it looked so vastly different. It didn't look as vintage. It didn't look cohesive with the style of the rest that I had upcycled. So I figured by doing this, it allowed it to kind of blend a little bit more. And for our last project today, I have this, I guess it's like a trinket tray or office supply tray riser. So it's 20.5 inches long. It is 2.5 inches tall and about 5 inches wide. And I got it and it was raw wood, and I painted it in raw silk by Fusion, which I'm sorry I didn't do on camera. And now I'm taking that Ephemeral Type stamp, and just like I did in the last project, I'm just finding different parts of the stamp that fit well within each of those little sections. And I thought this was the perfect stamp for this project because it very much lends itself to finding the kind of exact matches or as close to it to perfectly fit. It's almost like this stamp was made for a project like this. One thing you might be noticing is that some of my stamps are not going onto the piece perfectly. I'm okay with that because I want it to look a little bit old and like some of it has worn away over time. I also added just a couple of embellishments around the sides. You can see that that tray is very skinny, so I did not want to overload the project with a bunch of detail. I added some of the stamps to the sides too, and I wanted to show you this one technique, I guess I used, where I layered one stamp over the other. This type of stamp, like this ephemeral type stamp, I think it lends itself to looking a little bit messier when it is layered, like when you look at collages and things like that. I then took some transfers and I am adding them in. When you are using a rub-on transfer, you do want to make sure that you have a good place to grip onto as far as that top sheet goes, like the carrier sheet, so that while you are rubbing it off, you can slowly lift that carrier sheet and remove it from the transfer so that it is fully adhered to the piece. This was a little bit tricky because of the smaller sections of this tray, but I was able to make it work, and the actual concept of a rub-on transfer is so incredibly easy to very quickly style and make your piece shine. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like this type of content, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. I have a lot more coming. As you can see, there's a huge stash of things I have left to craft. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and I will see you again very soon.